Okay, well, my name is Emma Despland. I'm a professor in the Department of Biology, and the book I have to recommend is The Story of More by Hope Yaron. And so she essentially puts global change, which is both the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis, essentially on the back of a huge increase in consumption in the developed countries of the OECD. So there, she's very clear about how there's a huge inequality here, and it's only a very small proportion of the human population whose consumption in the past generation or so has absolutely exploded. And this is consumption of everything from fossil fuels and energy to food, sugar, meat, plastics, which is also a fossil fuel. And she does it in a way that's very quantitative. So it's a lot of quirky numbers about, how many pounds of sugar an American eats in a year, or how much feed it takes to grow a chicken from egg to broiler size, or how many hundreds of millions of years it takes to transform a forest into a coal seam. So there's a lot of these kind of quirky, eclectic numbers, and it's told with a wry humor that is actually hilarious. Surprisingly, I found myself laughing out loud several times. One point I found that she puts that's very hopeful and interesting is that she says essentially that if everybody in the developed world went back to the levels of consumption that people had in Switzerland in the 1960s, that would be sustainable. We'd be able to have everybody on Earth living at that level. And then, of course, she says, Switzerland in the 1960s was not an unpleasant place to be. And I actually have family who are Swiss. I don't remember the 1960s, but I was in Switzerland in the 1980s. And I do remember as a child even noticing that, my aunt had a half-size fridge, not a full-size fridge. And she still has that same fridge today, 30 years later. And everybody had bicycles, and everybody had train passes. And so I did already as a child see that there was a kind of disconnect between the level of stuff that people went through in Canada versus there. Again, so I found she did have this very hopeful message of here is a model of a way that we could live such that there would be enough for everybody forever.